My mother-in-law was the secret keeper of his affair. I always thought my mother-in-law was my best friend, my biggest cheerleader. I trusted her with everything, but it turns out 4 years, she was the gatekeeper to my husband's darkest secret, an entire second family. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone you've loved for almost 2 decades and suddenly realized you're staring at a stranger? That's what happened to me. Not just with my husband, but with the woman I called my second mom. This isn't just a story about an affair. This is about a web of deception so deep, so tangled into the fabric of my life by the 2 people I trusted most, that unraveling it almost broke me. But it didn't. It made me stronger. Our life, or the life I thought we had, looked like something straight out of a magazine. I met Mark in college. He was charming, driven, and had this incredible way of making you feel like the only person in the world. We were married by 24, had our daughter Lily by 26, and our son James 3 years later. We even bought a house in a quiet suburb with a big backyard and a tire swing hanging from an old oak tree. It was perfect. Almost sickeningly so. And right there in the middle of it all was my mother-in-law, Carol. From the day Mark introduced us, Carol didn't treat me like a daughter-in-law, she treated me like the daughter she never had. She was my emergency contact, my first call when I had good news, the shoulder I cried on. When Lily had a terrifyingly high fever one night, it was Carol who sat with me in the ER, holding my hand, promising me everything would be okay. When I battled postpartum anxiety after James was born, she came over every single day for a month to help so I could sleep, and never once made me feel like a burden. She was my confidant. We'd split a bottle of wine on a Friday night, gossiping and laughing until we cried. I told her things I didn't even tell my own mother. I trusted her completely. She'd always say things like, "You're the best thing that ever happened to Mark. You keep him grounded." I saw her as my greatest ally, the matriarch holding our perfect family together. Our bond felt like a fortress, and I felt so safe inside. And that's what makes the betrayal hurt so much more. The trust one placed in her was absolute, which made her deception a wound that cut even deeper than my husband's. The first crack in our perfect life was so small I almost missed it. It started with Mark's job. He was in sales and always traveled a bit, but about 3 years ago, it suddenly ramped up. He started taking frequent overnight business trips to a city a few hours away. At first, I didn't think twice. His company was growing, he was a star player. I was proud of him. But soon, the trips became a weekly thing. Every Tuesday. Like clockwork. Another trip to Crestwood? I'd ask, trying to hide the disappointment in my voice. "I know, honey, I'm sorry," he'd say, zipping his overnight bag. "This huge client is just super demanding. It's the final push on a massive contract. Once we lock it in, I promise things will go back to normal." But they never did. He'd come home on Wednesday nights looking drained, but it was a different kind of tired. It was a distant, hollowed-out look in his eyes. He got weird with his phone, guarding it like it held state secrets. He'd take calls in the garage or step outside, his voice a low hum. If I asked who called, he'd just wave it off. "Work. You know how it is." I finally mentioned my growing unease to Carol one afternoon. I expected her to share my worry, to maybe even offer to talk to Mark. Instead, she was way too quick to shut it down. "Oh, sweetie, don't do that to yourself," she said, patting my hand. "Men get like this when they're swamped at work. He's doing all of this for you and the kids. He loves you so much. Don't go looking for problems where there aren't any." Her response felt rehearsed. It was the kind of thing you say to quiet a fussy child, not the real heartfelt advice she always gave me. It was the first time her words felt like a dismissal instead of a comfort. It was a tiny shift, but it planted a seed of doubt. Why was she so busy defending him instead of just listening to me? That nagging feeling that something was off just wouldn't go away. It was a low hum of anxiety that followed me everywhere. I started paying closer attention, and little things started piling up. One night, I was doing laundry and a receipt fell out of his jeans from his last business trip. It was from a family-style restaurant in Crestwood, the kind with crayons and a kids' menu. The timestamp was 6:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. The bill was for a meal big enough for 3 or 4 people. He was supposed to be at a fancy dinner with a major client. This didn't add up. When I confronted him, he barely looked up from his laptop. Oh yeah, the clients wanted something casual. They had their kids with them. It was a whole thing. The answer was too fast, too smooth. No details, no color. Just a flat-out dismissal. My suspicion finally zeroed in on his phone. One night, after he was dead asleep, I did something I swore I'd never do. My hands were shaking as I picked up his phone and used his thumb to unlock it. Guilt washed over me, but the need to know was so much stronger. I went straight to his call log. And there it was, one number, called over and over. Always right after he'd call me to say goodnight from his hotel. There were texts, too. Hundreds of them. He'd deleted most, but the little preview snippets on his lock screen told a story. Can you pick up milk on your way? And Leo has a field trip form for you to sign. Leo? Who the hell was Leo? My heart was hammering against my ribs. I felt like a stranger in my own life. I decided to go to Carol one last time, my voice choked with desperation. We were in her garden, trimming roses, a ritual we'd had for years. Carol, I'm really worried about Mark, I said, my voice trembling. He's so distant, I found this weird receipt, and there are all these strange calls. She set down her shears and looked at me, her face a perfect mask of concern. Honey, I told you. Mark is under a lot of stress. You need to be his safe place, not another source of pressure. Marriage has seasons, and this is just a rough one. If you go digging for trouble, I promise, you'll find it. Sometimes it's just better to trust. Her words were a veiled threat. Stop digging. And that's when a truly cold, terrifying thought hit me. What if she wasn't just dismissing my fears? What if she was actively helping him hide something? The idea was so monstrous, so unlike the woman I knew, that I tried to shove it away. But it stuck. Her advice wasn't for me anymore. It was damage control. That conversation in the garden changed everything. I knew I was on my own. The 2 people I trusted most were a team, and I was on the outside. My search became frantic. I felt like a detective in some cheap thriller, but this was my actual life. I started with that phone number. Using one of those reverse lookup sites, my hands shaking, I typed it in. A name popped up, Anna Jensen, with an address in Crestwood. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a hotel. It was a house. A home. I couldn't breathe. I looked up the address on a real estate site. There it was, a charming blue bungalow with a white picket fence. A tricycle was parked on the front walk. The weight of it all was crushing. I spent the next week in a total fog, just going through the motions, packing lunches, helping with homework, kissing Mark goodbye. But inside, I was screaming. The final piece of the puzzle, the one that proved Carol knew everything, came from social media. I made a fake profile, completely blank, and searched for Anna Jensen. Her account was private, but her profile picture showed a smiling, beautiful woman with sandy blonde hair. And her cover photo. That photo shattered my entire world. It was a family portrait. There was Anna, my husband Mark, and a little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, with Mark's exact same curly hair and his smile. They were on a beach, beaming. They looked so happy. So real. But that wasn't the worst part. Standing right there with them, with her arm wrapped around the little boy, was Carol. My Carol. My mother-in-law. My friend. She was in their family photo, a smiling, proud member of the lie that had consumed my life. I swear the air left my body. I was looking at undeniable proof. It wasn't just an affair, it was a complete, secret family. And my mother-in-law wasn't just covering for him, she was an active participant. Every knowing glance, every dismissive comment, every piece of advice to just trust him flashed before my eyes. It was all a calculated act to keep me in the dark. The woman who held my hand in the emergency room was also holding the hand of her other grandson, a child whose very existence was built on my husband's betrayal. The confrontation wasn't some big, screaming match. It was a controlled explosion. By then, my grief had cooled into a hard, cold rage. I planned it. I waited until the next Tuesday, his trip day. I arranged a sleepover for the kids and told Mark I was having a girls' night. Then, I drove the 3 hours to Crestwood. I parked down the street from the blue bungalow, and I waited. At 7:15, Mark's car pulled into the driveway. He got out, not looking like a stressed-out executive, but like a happy, relaxed dad. The front door opened before he even reached it. Anna greeted him with a kiss, and the little boy Leo ran out shouting "Daddy," and jumped into his arms. I watched for another hour, my heart like a stone in my chest. Then, another car pulled up. A familiar silver sedan. It was Carol. She got out holding a brightly wrapped birthday gift. She hugged Anna, then Mark, and then swooped Leo up in a big grandmotherly hug. They all went inside, a happy little family celebrating a birthday. I didn't storm the door. I just sat in my car and took a picture with my phone. It was grainy and dark, but it was clear enough. It showed the 4 of them on the porch, lit by the warm glow from inside the house. Proof. I drove home in a complete daze. The next day, when Mark walked in the door, I was waiting for him. "Hey honey, long day," he said, dropping his keys. "How was Crestwood?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "You know. Same old," he mumbled, not looking at me. "Did you sign the big contract?" "Almost there. Just dotting the I's." I stood up. "How is Anna? And little Leo? Did he have a nice birthday?" It looked like he did from where I was sitting. The color drained from his face. He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He stammered, denied, tried to lie, but his eyes were filled with pure terror. "Don't," I said, my voice like ice. "Don't you dare lie to me again. I was there. I saw you. I saw your son. I saw everything." He finally broke, confessing it all. The affair with a colleague, Anna, started 6 years ago. She got pregnant. He panicked. But he couldn't leave her. So, he decided to have both. He built an entire second life. He swore he still loved me, that he never wanted to hurt me. His words were just empty noise. "And your mother?" I asked. It was the only question that mattered now. "How long?" He couldn't look at me. "From the beginning," he whispered. She helped. She wanted to know her grandson." The next day, I went to Carol's house. I walked right in, just like I had 1,000 times before. She was in the kitchen, humming. She looked up, and her smile vanished when she saw my face. "I know," I said. "I know everything." She didn't even pretend to be confused. The mask just dropped. Her face, which I'd always seen as kind, turned hard. "I don't know what he told you." "I don't need him to tell me," I cut her off. "I saw you, Carol. At Leo's birthday party. I saw you holding your other grandson. The one you kept secret from me, and from Lily and James." "It was complicated," she said, her voice cold. "What was I supposed to do? He's my son. Leo is my grandson. Family is complicated." I laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "Family? You call this family? You looked me in the eye for years and lied. You weren't protecting your son, Carol. You were his accomplice. You let him drain our bank account to support another household while I thought we were a team. You were supposed to be my friend." "I did what I had to do for my son," she said, her voice flat. "No," I said, the finality of it all settling in my soul. "You are a selfish, cruel woman. You are not a grandmother to my children. Not anymore. We are done. You will never see me, and you will never see Lily or James again." The aftermath was a blur of lawyers, boxes, and tears. Mostly the kids' tears, which was the hardest part. How do you explain that Daddy has another family, and the grandma they adore helped him hide it? I filed for divorce immediately. I fought for and got full custody. I sold the house, that perfect house tainted with the ghost of a life that was never real. It's been 2 years. Rebuilding has been the hardest thing I've ever done. Some days, the grief is still a physical weight. But I am healing. I moved, started a new job, and my children and I are building a new life, one based on truth. I learned that the deepest betrayals come from the people who swear they love you the most. But I also learned that I am so much more resilient than I ever knew. I survived the unthinkable. I stared into that abyss of lies and walked away, not into darkness, but into the light of my own hard-won truth. This isn't a tragedy. It's a story of survival.